Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. How are you all? Ramadan Mubarak. I hope your fast is going well. We are in day 20. So we're moving along. It seemed to go fast to me. It was pretty smooth and pretty good. The time has changed because now the sunrise is somewhere around 6:30, and then it extends now to sunset around 7:12, 7:15. So the day has expanded on us, but it's okay. we are moving right along. And hopefully, through this fasting process, and I would enjoin anyone, whether you're a Muslim or not, to fast, um, because fasting helps you to restore your discipline. Of course, there's all kind of health benefits, but in terms of discipline, it helps you restore that, helps you to get closer to Allah, especially when you fast and pray and use that time to go deeper into your spirituality. And listen, when you start fasting, stuff start firing off and things start happening. So you have to be you have to remember that too as well. Okay. Before we started, I don't know if you guys saw that we're having a Bitcoin auction for the commemorative Elijah coin on the digital blockchain. And just email me if you want the link in order to go out there and bid. You can email me at, I didn't put the link up here. I'll put it up at the end. I'll find it. But there's a link where you can go out there and bid for the Bitcoin. And I want to just say this to you all, because a lot of people are, they don't really understand what we mean by Bitcoin and investments and things like that. As the world economy begins to change and the structure of the system begins to adjust, using other tools and techniques to preserve money, to preserve history, to preserve value is what we have to be open to. Okay? Because what's starting to happen is just taking your money and sitting it in a bank account is not the way to preserve wealth. Um, and we can go into all of those reasons, but you have to find other ways to preserve wealth. Of course, real estate has always been a good one, and it still continues to be a good one. But utilizing some of the other tools, some people invest in certain types of insurance policies. Some people have investment accounts. Some people invest in the blockchain. This is just one of those kinds of tools. I just want to talk about something today that's a subject that just kept coming up, that's surrounded around the knowledge of self, accepting our own and being ourselves. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us that instruction in the 30s and 40s, and it became really popularized in the 60s. A lot of people from slavery didn't understand what the X meant. We didn't know that our last name was not our name. So we heard that instruction, accept your own and be yourself. And we said, okay, I get it. I'm going to be so-and-so X and so-and-so X. And we got that. We got real excited, and movement came behind it, because we kind of just reduced it to a name, right? And we all know the origin of our last names, or our slave names, really are handed down from slavery, where as a captured and kidnapped person, you took the name of the person that owned you. So if Mr. Jenkins purchased you off the auction block, you would have become so-and-so Jenkins, or woman Jenkins, or if they gave you a name, that's fine. You might have been Nettie Jenkins. If Mr. Jenkins then, 5 years down the line, sold you to Mr. Franklin, then you went from Nettie Jenkins to Nettie Franklin. Okay? And then let's say Mr. Franklin used you as collateral for a loan, and the bank repossessed his property and his cattle and his slaves and his horses and the land and the crops. And then you went to the bank, and then after the bank, somebody came to the bank sale or the fire sale and purchased you, and he was Mr. Garrison. Then you became Nettie Garrison. So this is why in the Nation of Islam we put the X for the unknown, because we don't know and didn't know, because so much of our history and who we are was erased. And so sometimes we take a lot of pride in, yeah, I'm a Jackson, I'm a Jenkins, I'm a Johnson, but that's really just your slave master's name. That's the one who owned you. So sometimes we think, oh yeah, it's a Johnson, I'm related, but all the Johnsons ain't related, because they was moving the slaves around, they were trading them. So I just want to give that as an example. So we latched onto that really strongly in the 60s. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also taught us our identity, and he taught us the white man's identity. Okay? Some of us embraced that, some of us didn't. Okay? Now, fast forward, a lot of us have kind of thrown away the science of that teaching. And here's why. Because when that became popularized and that began to wake us up, just those little facts that I taught you about the ownership in your last name woke us up to a reality and made us to believe a lot of other things that, or disbelieve a lot of other things that we have been taught during slavery, to realize, wow, this was a complete manipulation and a propaganda. So what happened? The powers that be created more propaganda. And what they started to do and continue to do was to erase our history. And in erasing our history, there's a warfare concept called unpersoning someone. So they would unperson any of our people who didn't agree with them. Maybe you were a great inventor. See, the ideology was that Black people were slaves and we were the property of someone else. And even our intellectual capacity should be owned and controlled by someone else. So you had Black people who were quote unquote free Black people who invented things, who created things. But because that being that inventor and that creator went against the grain of the ideology that existed in the world, you then were unpersoned. And why would you be unpersoned? You would be unpersoned so that your patent or your contribution or whatever it was that you gave that you had a value could be taken from you, and nobody moving forward would even think anything about it. We're just learning about different people. I used to always make a joke, like whoever invented the potato chip must have been the devil because it's so addictive. Come to find out, a Black man invented the potato chip, but he had been unpersoned for so long. He was erased and removed from history. Not just him, but so many of our political figures, so many of our inventors, so many of the great Black people. I always talk about the Chicago Renaissance and Chicago's first century and the contribution that Chicago played to the Great Migration and the establishment of what we know today as pop culture has been unpersoned and erased. Most of us don't know who Annie Malone is. We don't know. So in addition sometimes to unpersoning you, because they had another concept they came up with, reperson. So they would repackage the person or reperson you. So maybe you were this kind of person, and then they would come out with a propaganda or a history that they would write, that they would attach to you, that had remnants of who you were, but wasn't all the way who you are. You can see that with Martin Luther King. When you really study Dr. King, the image that we have of Dr. King is only a remnant of who he was. When we look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I've had people offer me money. They said, well, we're just going to repackage him. And I said, no, I'm going to just endure the pain and struggle this out, because what I'm not going to do is sell out. I'm not putting that legacy on my family that I was the sellout. Nah, not happening. So when we talk about accepting our own and being ourselves, we have to know who we are and whose we are. And it's so easy to get manipulated and negotiated out of who we are, because there's oftentimes a reward attached to allowing ourselves to either be unpersoned or repersoned. So if they say, well, we're going to just repackage you, sometimes we go, okay, that makes sense. And I think one of the most beautiful things that a lot of the brothers in the early days of hip hop, especially in the 90s, who came up out the streets and just said, I'm going to be myself, because they couldn't get a deal. That really was a blessing. They couldn't get distribution. So in the 90s, they came out wearing their fatigues like No Limit and like, look, I'm a soldier. And they were just being themselves. What that did was that ushered in a new way of thinking and a new way of being. It's a direct offshoot to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaching us to accept our own and be ourselves. So what we did was we said, okay, you won't let us in. We're going to be ourselves. And that's what a lot of people did during hip hop. But then they jumped into hip hop and started repackaging people, repersoning people. And what is the motivation or the incentive for the repersoning and the repackaging? It's money. It's money. So they say, you know what? If you dressed like this, instead of the way you dress right now, which obviously you like, instead of being yourself, dress the way I want you to dress. And then I'll reward you with a contract or with money. And a lot of us thought, I can either struggle or take the money. And so a lot of us opted for the money. We let go of ourselves. We sold out our soul in exchange for the reward that somebody who wants to own and control us and continue that mindset of slavery. See, we have a whole system that has been set up based on those predatory behaviors. Here's another way that we ignore the concept of accept our own and be ourselves. As I always quote the great Tom Burrell, who said in his book Brainwashed that the brain washed has now become the brain washer. Okay. A lot of that is because they've designed a system around us. And a lot of us think that the only way to do business is to be a predator. And some of us are so filled with deceptive intelligence that we're not walking around saying, I want to prey on you. I want to be a predator. We really think we're good people. We really think we're helping, but we're really preying on somebody because we're trying to negotiate them out of being themselves and into being what we want them to be. It's something we've learned from this system and this man who has run this system. Negotiate them out of being who they are. And you can do that in the name of, I want to love you. I want to protect you. I want to take care of you. I want to help you get to the top. Here's what happens with that. It worked in the 70s and the 80s. But now we're living in the day and time of the manifestation of God. This is not the day and time to deny or denounce who you really are or whose you are. This ain't the time. See, who you are now today is your currency. We are living in a day and time where your authenticity is your currency. It's your protection. It's your passport to the next stage, to that next elevated places like we talked about, that next elevated place like we talked about a few weeks ago. Accept your own and be yourself. Now you see all kind of movements out here adopting that principle. This is an interesting thing about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and what he teaches us. What he teaches us and what he taught us directly in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and what he teaches us through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. There's principles and a way, a process involved in those teachings. And what people do is they unperson him and repackage it. So they unperson him by writing him away, writing him out as the deliverer or the author of it, and say, and they'll contribute a quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to Malcolm X, or a quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to Muhammad Ali, or anybody. They'll attribute that quote. They'll totally unperson him, take his name off of it, and give it to somebody else. And so we think that that person said it because it goes into pop culture and it becomes propaganda. And then they take the concept. He told us to eat one meal a day. And now they say, well, intermittent fasting. And so intermittent fasting becomes the repackaging of it, right? Accepting your own and be yourself gets repackaged. When you look at these other movements, the LGBTQ plus movement, the women's rights movement, they're taking the principles of freedom, justice, and equality given to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and continue to be promoted and expounded upon and expanded through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. They're lifting the concept and taking it to their movement. And this becomes a way of life. I watched the Black Lives Matter movement. I remember when they were going down State Street in Chicago, and they had the Black Power fist. Where'd they get that from? All these posters with the fist. I watched our former president and his movement use the Black Power fist. I watched the rainbow get taken from us. Jesse Jackson had the Rainbow Coalition. We had the Rainbow Children. That was taken. And the whole concept of the rainbow removed, and whoever invented it gets unpersoned, and then the concept is repackaged and stolen. This is just a way of life in America. This is a Western way of living. And so oftentimes, those of us that are amateur in applying Islam and business do the same thing. But we do it in the name of Allah, in the name of love. We take a person's concept, we unperson them, and we repackage them. Or we say, I have something in my mind that I want this person to relay, or how I want this person to be. So I'm going to go and work with them. And in my working with them, I have now repackaged them. Let me tell you, one of the first things I do when I get a new client is I sit with them in the first session, which is a free consultation, so that I understand who they are, so that I'm careful not to unperson and repackage them. I see y'all all up in here. I'm going to acknowledge y'all in a minute. I had something on my screen and it was blocking. So that I'm careful not to unperson and repackage them. So I'm asking who, and I'm listening to them so I can identify who they are, show that to them, and say, now, how do you want to structure your business around this? And so some of the principles that I deploy is I make sure that I'm not mimicking the predatory practices of predatory capitalism, which has a business model in it that creates a system that is relying upon predatory behavior and oppression in order to succeed. And so I'm very careful to make sure I understand, what do you want? I'm not injecting anything in your head, and I will give you options. I'll say, okay, let's put together these 5 options. And then you pick. And then we figure out how to wrap the process and system we're developing around who you are. See, a lot of people don't know how to do business like that. They only know how to do business based on what they've seen in the streets. And they may mean well, and they may very well help you to be successful, but they're not helping you to sustain and get up out of this business model that no longer works. So this is a key point, and it's a new way of thinking and a new way of being that a lot of us aren't really thinking about, because we've been taught business by predators. And so even if we come in a nice way, even if we say, I don't want any money from the process. I'm not trying to get anything out of you. I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to support. But oftentimes, even in that, we're still not liberating that person to be themselves. The greatest entertainers and artists that we know today are people who were able to be themselves. That's where the most power is. But because we are so down on ourselves, our self-esteem is so low. And as a collective, as Black people, we have low self-esteem. Even as Muslims, as a collective, as Muslims, we have low self-esteem. As a collective of people in the Nation of Islam, our self-esteem is low. We're always like, oh, I can't really be myself because they gonna trip. And we become victim to what somebody else is gonna do and what somebody else is gonna say, instead of petitioning Allah, who is the best knower, who is in charge, who we know no weapon formed against us will prosper. Now, let me say this. I'm not telling you to go out here and weaponize who you are. And some of us do that. We weaponize our Christianity. We weaponize being a Jehovah's Witness. We weaponize being a Muslim. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you just being yourself. You don't have to change who you are in order to be successful. You really don't. In fact, about it, since Allah came to make himself known, okay, he's like water. He's looking for, where can I come through? Where can I make myself known? Right there in this person who's accepting their own and being themselves. Right here in this person. It's going to be hard if this person is altering. And so when you are your authentic self, you're a refreshment. You're a drink of water. You're a magnet to others who are trying to find their way up out of a system that has always told us we are not good enough. See, we're waking up today. We are in a system that has always said, the minute they kidnapped us, they said, we're going to unperson you. And we're going to reperson you into who we want you to be. And so there's always been that tug inside of us. Even when we forgot who we are, who we were, there was something inside of us, deep inside of our solar plexus that said, I'm different. I'm better than this. I can do more. I can do better. This is why during Reconstruction, right after slavery, we did better as a people, economically, spiritually, than we have at any other time throughout history. We own more land. We had more businesses. We invented stuff. We had our own cities. They had to burn them down and destroy them because they said, oh, shoot, they're accepting their own and being their selves. So when people see you being yourself and just being who you are, there's something inside of them that starts to churn. Something right here in the solar plex that starts to churn. And they don't know what it is, but it feels good. And so when they look at you, when they hear you talk, when they do business with you, when they listen to your music, when they read your writings, when they just watch you move throughout the world, there's something about you that makes them get attracted to you, that makes them go, huh? And so you become this magnet because now Allah can use you as a beacon and a torchlight to those who are waking up. So accepting your own and being yourself is deeper. And we have to be keen on that. I'm so keen on that it irritates a lot of people. You all can only imagine, for me, in building the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museums, I get a lot of people who come to me and say, you should do this. And why don't you do that? Most of the talk about me is people who go, well, she's stupid. She shouldn't have did that, or she should be doing this. And if I was her, I would do this or that. It ain't about what you want to do. It's about what Allah is downloading into me to do. So even when somebody tells me an idea and my conscious mind, my ego state may say, that sounds good, I take it back in prayer. And I say, let me sit with this, Allah. What you think? How should I be? How should I move? Or does this make sense? And then he lets me know why. Because I understand that in doing what I am doing and being myself as I'm doing it, accepting my own and being myself, accepting my assignment and working to walk in purpose with that assignment, that I'm showing some other people, I'm waking some folks up. It's some folks out here where their solar plexus is churning, their pineal gland is turning, the crust is coming off of it. And it's starting to wake them up. Don't see when you pay attention to this pop culture world, they got us worried about what somebody else doing, what somebody else thinking. Don't worry about if somebody else got 1 million followers. Just do what Allah is calling you to come out and do on your podcast or in your art form. I can't even tell you. I've been blogging. I started off audio blogging in 2000, somewhere like 7 or 8. And then later I started video blogging. I was on radio. I cannot tell you how many blessings have come out of me doing this with you now every Saturday and every Thursday. It used to be every Sunday night I used to do it. I cannot tell you the blessings that I have received because by stepping out here and telling my story and sharing with you what Allah has deposited in me, sharing you my experiences, I just get a high knowing that in some way I may be blessing you. And I ask for support for the network, and I ask you to Cash App because the platform costs money and all of that. But I was doing it when I had to just talk on the phone and you had to call into a conference call to listen. but I've met so many amazing people and business partners right here doing this. So I'm encouraging us all to accept your own and be yourself. And I will say this, I have to give credit to my parents, specifically my mother, because my mother was adamant growing up that we would not be followers. In our house, you got a whooping for two things: lying and being a follower. So you had to figure out how to be yourself. Some of you all heard me say how sometimes I look back at pictures and I'm like, Mom, why you let me dress like this? She's like, you just wanted to be yourself and I was going to let you. Now, sometimes during school photos, she would fix me up. I see the photo and I remember her fixing me up like, no, wear this jacket. You're going to get your hair done like this. But I would do all kind of stuff, cut my hair, and I was just doing stuff. But I'm grateful for that because that helped me build the muscle to do what I'm doing today. It helped me build the muscle that gave me the stamina to endure long-term projects. When most people fall off and run out of oxygen, and we become so accustomed to allowing ideas to die that it's just like a normal thing. It's like breathing. Oh yeah, I started that, but it died. And so that's another thing that I try to guard against in my businesses. I may get an assistant or a friend or a partner, and I just noticed that something we're working on, they ain't doing it no more, or they'll do it if I'm reminding them. And that's okay because I get it that a lot of us don't have the muscle to endure. We like to settle into a groove that'll bring us a certain amount of money, bring us a certain amount of attention, bring us back to that space where we're owned by somebody else. Where, a lot of us own our businesses and we have our own independent businesses, but we act like we still work for somebody. A lot of people can't own their own business because they can't work for themselves. Because this little principle right here, accepting your own and being yourself, this is where your creativity comes. This is where your authenticity comes from. This is where you will invent and develop something that is unique to you that will sustain you and your family for generations. But the minute you stop being yourself, the minute you stop being that beacon of hope for others who are waking up, you start cutting off your revenue. You start cutting off your blessings. You might gain a little momentum, but then it becomes like, well, where do I go from here? So the next time somebody tells you they want to repackage you, or you notice that somebody's been unperson, repost. Repost these things that you see about inventors. Study your history, because once your history is taken away from you, you can be manipulated because you have no legs to stand on. You have no reference. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, history is the best at rewarding its researcher. See, now you don't know what they did in the past. You can't see patterns. I'm always looking at patterns and I say, man, this is the same playbook. When I see people running scams, I recognize the scam because I recognize the playbook. When I see people thinking a certain way, I recognize the manipulation because I recognize the playbook. I see you doing to them what you was trying to do to me, or maybe what you did to me. I'm paying attention because I'm a student of history. So don't let them unperson your family members. Don't let them unperson you by first going, let's repackage you. Let me repackage you. Let me change you up. And again, it's a process that a lot of people deploy. And why do they deploy it? Because they've seen it done, or they deploy it out of fear. And here's the last thing I'm going to say before we go. A lot of us love and support out of fear. That's another thing that I work on in business. It's one of the reasons why certain industries I don't really do anymore. Many of you know that back in the day I had a entertainment business. I don't do that and have no desire to be in that business anymore. And so I admire people like Golden Child that we had on Thursday, who are developing their own movement and their own way of doing things, because in that industry you have to unperson and repackage in order to make it. And it's too much morphing and changing that you have to do in order to get to the bag, unless you create your own system, unless you create your own process, unless you come up with a way to do it where you're creating a collective that supports you. And when you look at somebody like this brother, don't let me tell you something. The Nation of Islam and the Muslims are very, very powerful. Conscious people are very powerful. We've never monetized our power. So those of us that love righteousness, that can unite under a flag of righteousness, of being decent, whether we be Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or whatever, we've never really monetized our power. It's usually just ratchetness that gets monetized. But if we decide, you know what, I'm going to start supporting that sister with the podcast on the network, Sajdah Wendy Muhammad, because I like the righteous way in which she tries to approach business. And we start to use our unity and change the algorithm and get behind righteousness. Trust me, you will see us make some changes, and we're going to make some money, and we can outpace, outchart anything that's out here. But just don't forget, you have to be yourself. You have to be yourself. The minute you start changing, the minute you start adjusting, you're going to take away some of your power. So when we get behind artists who are not ratchet, who we love, people are so tired of ratchetness that now you have old school concerts that are popping up. They call it old school, like SWV and Escape. They're doing a tour. That tour is going to make so much money. New Edition, it's going to make so much money. And you didn't see that back in the day. But it's because now people are so tired of ratchetness. They just tired. And so when an alternative comes up, that alternative can really make money as long as they stay true to who they are. And I'm going to say this one other thing, and this is to the Muslims. The world doesn't know us. The world has never gotten a chance to really know us. All you see of us is you see us drilling. You see us in our uniforms and our headpieces. You see us on social media and on television, but you don't know the soul of us. You don't know who we are. You don't know where we came from. You don't know where we were what we was resurrected up out of when we joined these teachings. You don't know how Allah saved us from going down a certain road that may have been destructive, or that probably was destructive to ourselves. You don't really know us, and you don't know our story. And this is why, and I say this to Muslims, they don't know us. So get out there and tell your story. We still in the resurrection business. Get out there and tell your story. And guess what? Your story, your true and authentic story about how these teachings have saved your life and redirected you would be so interesting. You are adding another layer to Black history, to the story of Black people, that you will disrupt. We will break these algorithms out here. Tell your story. That's why I tell you my story in business as Wendy Muhammad, and presenting myself as Wendy Muhammad. I'm not foreign. I'm not from another country. And I would get that all the time. Oh, you must be from Ethiopia or something like that, because you couldn't possibly be a Muslim convert from the Nation of Islam because they're not smart. They don't do business. They're not this is the things I would hear. And I say, let me show you. And with that fuel, allow me to break a lot of records. See, first you got to stop being scared, though. You got to stop being scared, and you have to believe, and you have to have faith, which is two different things. You have to believe in the power of Almighty God, Allah, and you have to have faith that that power is real. So you got to stop being scared. And so I would always go beyond my intellectual capacity, whether it was building a hospital when I knew a lot of people thought I couldn't do it. Because I said, you know what? This is going down in history. This is for my family. This is for my people. This is for my legacy. And at the end of the day, when you pull them permits, when you look at that, when you look at the records and the documentation, and thank God now for the internet and the blockchain and ways in which these things can't be erased and can be preserved, you can't take that away from me. There's a lot of other projects that I've done and things that I've worked on where I had to push all the way to the edge. And just as I was about to fall off on the edge, Allah was right there, strengthening my faith, strengthening my belief in Him, strengthening my love for Him and my confidence to rely on Him. So people don't know you. They don't know us as Muslims, just like they don't know Allah. But they can get to know Allah by getting to know you. So don't unperson yourself and reperson yourself because you're just following a business model that has been out here for years and they got you shook up and scared. Accept your own and be yourself. I see y'all in the chat. We're going to get out of here. The sun has already come up. Brother Donald is there. He said, peace, queen. Good morning, mom. Happy Saturday. Sister Betty, welcome, welcome. Happy Saturday. Great morning. Brother Lamont, walaikum salam. Good morning. Ramadan Kareem. Brother Victor, walaikum salam. Let's see. We got Sister Alita says, Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak, morning blessings, everyone. So, walaikum salam, Ramadan Kareem to you. Assalamu alaikum, Muhammad El Barkawi. Welcome, welcome. Sister Nubia Latifa says, happy Saturday, Sister Sajdah and the Winner's Circle. I see Sister Sandra here. She says, Assalamu alaikum. Who else we got up in here? Magnolia Crescent, Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan Kareem, Magnolia Crescent. That's Brother Anthony and Sister Karima. Let's see. Brother Lamont making a comment about intermittent fasting. That's exactly right. Sister Crystal said, this blessed me so much. Thank you and praise be to Allah for accepting your own and being yourself. Thank you, sis. That's the best compliment you could give me, that it blessed you. Listen, you all. Support the network, hit the super chat at the bottom, go to the Cash App. Don't forget, we do have the Bitcoin auction going on, the commemorative Elijah coins. Oh, shoot, I just dropped it. But the commemorative Elijah coins, and it went across the room. Okay, the commemorative Elijah coins are also available. And let me say this. Give you a few quotes from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as we go out. Oh Allah, please let me continue to be a believer and let no man deceive me and take away my reward. That's what this talk has been around. Don't be deceived either by love or by hate, and don't let fear negotiate you out of your reward. He also said to us, do not withhold your good just because another withholds his or her goods. You do your part. You accept your own. You be yourself. You support. Don't look around and go, I know I'm supposed to be supporting Black businesses. I really want to support Sister Sajdah. Let me look and see if anybody else is supporting her. Let me wait. Let me wait till this afternoon and ask around. Be your own person. See, that's what my mama taught me. Be your own person. Stand up for what you believe in and what you desire makes sense in your heart. Because guess what? That desire in your heart is Allah encouraging you to accept your own and be yourself. And let's see, did we do this one? Yeah, we did that one. All right, so make sure you like and subscribe. You all got it. I think y'all got the message. All praises due to Allah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see. We'll be back Thursday, inshallah. I am working on some everyday shows, in particular coffee talks. So it'll be Sajdah coffee talks every day. So I'm working on it, just trying to figure out how to do it, without too much drama. We can make it a produced show. And what I may do is produce some of them where they would be replays, but then I really like this live concept. So I think what we may do is just kind of go with a still camera and just some mornings sit in the park and do it. And some mornings be in the kitchen and be in different places. Some morning with the other camera that I bought, we can have guests that can come in actually, and so we're going to play around with that and see what we can do. All right. Peace and blessings, family. Love you all very much. Ramadan Mubarak. Make this fast your best fast and the best Ramadan yet. And jump on. You can email me if you want to purchase a commemorative Elijah coin, or if you want to know how to bid in the Elijah Coin 20 Bitcoin auction. Peace and blessings, family. Assalamu alaikum.